The defensive tackles, probably one of my favorite rooms on the roster, and I really like how Bean commits to the trenches, and he's kind of throwing some darts at the wall, and if they're not working, he's not afraid to move on, and we saw that again this offseason where that position group is pretty much completely overturned again. Star Lotulelei gone. Harrison Phillips, I was sad to see him go. I feel like he kind of had an uphill battle early in his career, but I felt like he was coming into his own. But at the same time, it was kind of like half of a year of production that we were expecting to see, and kind of betting on that and giving a decent sized contract. It's a little sketchy, and I mean, for about the same money that we would have spent on Phillips, we were able to bring in Jordan Phillips and Shaq Lawson. So I guess I'm okay with it. And what really makes me feel better about that is went ahead and brought in Tim Settle, who's a guy I'm really excited for. So the defensive tackle room as it stands now: Ed Oliver, DaQuan Jones, Jordan Phillips, Tim Settle, Brandon Bryant, Eli Ankou, and then the undrafted free agents Prince Emili and CJ Brewer. And I think this room is kind of similar to the defensive end room in that with the rotation that the Bills like to use, those top four guys are going to get a ton of run. And, this isn't even kind of getting into can some of the defensive ends shrink down and play defensive tackle, just looking at the strictly positional. I think DaQuan Jones offers a great replacement for what we wanted Star Lotulelei to be. And, hopefully he can stay healthy and be on the field. And we saw in Star's tenure here, the impact that he was able to have on the defense when he was out there. But it's a cliche for a reason. The best ability is availability. And, having that guy that's supposed to eat up the space in the middle and having him not be out there, it really changes how you're running your defense and playing people out of position and all that. So I think it was time to move on from Star, and I like DaQuan Jones as that replacement. Ed Oliver looked like he really, really blossomed, came into his own last year, and I was excited when we drafted him. It's hard not to get excited for a top 10 pick, but kind of came along slowly, and then it was is he playing out of position without Star there? Is he too undersized? Blah, blah, blah. You've heard it all about Ed Oliver. And I think in particular through like the middle to second half of last season, there were so many games where he's the type that doesn't always show up on the stat sheet, but he was forcing pressure right in the quarterback's face, making them make poor decisions, just looking like his hair was on fire playing out there. And I think if you kind of look back and rewatch some of the games, if you start keeping a near sack statistic for Ed Oliver, I mean, he was creating havoc and really opens up things for the other guys as you move down the line. So really excited to see what he does going into this season. Tim Settle, I mentioned before, I think he has the chance to be a really special player, and he was kind of in a weird situation with Washington where when he was getting his opportunities, he was flashing, he was shining in moments, but he was also facing the uphill battle of everybody on that defensive front being a first round pick in front of him. And, we see it with Brandon Bean, how much he loves his draft picks and wants the guys to work out and whatnot. Well, he was sitting behind a group of guys that were all first round picks and they were all working out. So at a certain point, their abundance of riches becomes kind of something that seemingly falls in our lap. And I'm really excited to see what we get out of Tim Settle this season. Brandon Bryant, Eli Ankou, we know these guys, they've been around. I don't expect them to make any sort of huge contributions, barring, injuries. And even at that, I think if one of these guys went down for a significant amount of time, it might be a situation where we bring in, a player from outside the organization. And then I kind of saved Jordan Phillips for last. I'm going to put him right in that same bucket as Shaq Lawson. They played together really well, and Jordan Phillips had that crazy 10-sack year with the Bills, and it's a huge fan favorite. I remember the game he had. His cleats that he was wearing was somebody jumping into a table and breaking it, and a lot to love about the guy. They both bring like an energy and an edge to the defense, and I'm excited to have both of them back in town. But on the same token as Shaq Lawson, it's kind of he left town. Good for him. He went and got that contract. But playing elsewhere, he was never really the same player that we saw in Buffalo. So while my mind goes right to excited to have him back, remembering what he was as a Bill, curious to see what Jordan Phillips we get and if he's able to kind of replicate what he did with the Bills, or if we're going to see, kind of what he looked like in Arizona. So I think that was a very low risk, high reward signing where you don't really need this guy to take a ton of snaps with the people in front of him, but a fresh Jordan Phillips, and just kind of let him get after it. And I guess we'll see what happens there, but I'm excited for that.